Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. Whether it's a problem with alcohol, opioids, cocaine, or any other substance, addiction kills thousands of Americans every year and impacts millions of lives. The experts say addiction is a mental disorder which compels someone to repeatedly use substances or engage in behaviors even though they have harmful consequences. Addictions destroy marriages, friendships, and careers and threatens a person's basic health and safety. Almost 21 million Americans have at least one addiction, yet only 10% of them receive treatment. Americans between the ages of 18 and 25 are most likely to use addictive drugs. Brandon Gallups is the associate pastor of Redeemed Ministries Church in Cleveland, Alabama, and he's also the director of the ministry's Healing and Recovery Center, a 9-month in-house intensive drug and alcohol rehabilitation center and discipleship training program. Brandon has been involved in addiction ministry and counseling for years and has counseled with hundreds of men to help them understand the dangers and root problems behind the perilous world of chemical addiction. He's a weekly co-host of Spiritual Encounters with Pastor Casper McLeod, a weekly commentator and a frequent guest host of Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. He's been featured as a biblical commentator on InfoWars Nightly News, Bill Martinez Live, and it appears here on the first Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock to explore this most important topic of overcoming addiction. I want to welcome in my good friend, Brandon Gallups. Brandon, good to see you.
Rabbi, it's good to see you, brother. I'm so grateful to be here today on this beautiful March day in North Alabama. I have been waiting on some sunshine, my friend.
Well, sunshine is here, and for a lot of people,
Yes.
you know, we have seasons here change quickly. From one day to the next, and so it can be 75 one day and 34 the next. So we like it when the sun comes out.
We do. It's good for the mental well-being, and that's not a joke. That's very true. It's amazing how much the weather and the sunshine or lack of sunshine plays into our mental wellness. There's something to the light, brother. We got to live in the light.
That's it. It's the light that overcomes the darkness.
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, we've been talking about overcoming addiction for quite a while with you, and we do this every month because it's that important that we talk about. And I began thinking that I'm not sure that I have a very good understanding of the process and an understanding of alternatives, an understanding of what's really involved. Now, you have an active work program there where people enter your program and are employed, if you will, doing various jobs around your community or your church, and that's a requirement of your program that they be engaged in that. And I read through your application to see what it is that you're looking for, and there are certain conditions. You can't be a sex offender. You can't be convicted of certain crimes, although you do take people out of the judicial system in an alternative sentencing program or sentencing program. You participate with the court systems. But I don't know anything about are there oversight or regulations? Are there licenses? You know, how do you even start this process? And then how do you prepare for it? And what's the world of rehab out there? Is there, you see these Malibu commercials that you can go out and walk the beaches of Malibu and get healed of your addiction in this beautiful spa-like atmosphere, and that's got to cost tens of thousands of dollars to go to a facility like that. So really, for our audience to understand both how do we do it here in America, how do some other countries handle this problem, which we know is epidemic throughout the world. So maybe you can take us on a little journey through the whole concept and system of approaching rehab.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, and if I miss something that you asked, just say, hey, address this. But so just to start off, Redeemed Ministries, we are completely independent and self-sustaining, self-functioning. In other words, we receive no state funds, no government assistance, um, and there really is no oversight to speak of because of that. In other words, if the government was funding us and giving us money, then of course they could tell us, hey, you have to do this, you can't say this, and we don't want that here. We want to be able to tell people about Jesus and preach the word from Genesis to Revelation, and not have to remove any of it because someone's feelings might get hurt. So for us, and listen, I can't speak for every state in the United States, obviously, is to say, hey, you can just do this and start a rehab. For us here in Alabama, because we're independent, of course we are fully insured as a ministry, and I mean, our insurance bill alone every month is thousands of dollars, and to be able to do what we do and to be protected in that area. So, there is that requirement, but we're completely independent here, Rabbi. We as far as like curriculums that we use, I have written about half of the curriculums that we use, and they are just straight out of the Bible, just biblical principles, sound biblical principles. We approach everything from a biblical standpoint. We have some other outside curriculum sources that we use and have used, Experiencing God and Mind of Christ, very sound biblical studies that people are familiar with, and some others. So that's kind of how we operate. We here at Redeemed, we are a 9-month in-house treatment program. And so what that looks like for us is when somebody agrees to come into our program, they actually sign. You saw the application. They sign an agreement that they are willing to come and to be here for 9 months. Now, literally, our doors don't even lock on our facility. If somebody wants to leave, they are more than happy to leave. We will even, we'll give them a ride to meet somebody somewhere, to the best of our ability. We're not jail. We're not prison. We're not making people stay and do everything. It's a voluntary program to come to. But so they agree to a period of 9 months in the program. They live on ministry property. We provide room, board. They eat very well, meet all of their physical needs. If we literally take men and women here with nothing but the clothes on their back, we feed them, house them, clothe them, love them, nurture them back to life. And so, when you talked about basically them being an our employee, that no one gets paid for anything that they do here, but we have everything that we do here where these men and women work during the day serves to fund and keep light bills paid and food on the table. And we just broken ground on a new facility for our men. It'll be a 40-bed facility when completed. So all of that just kind of helps keep the ball rolling. And we have a thrift store where some of the men and women work. We have a wood shop where some of the men work and build custom furniture. We have a metal shop where some of the men work and build custom metal things, everything from barbecue grills to they do repairs on people's trailers and farm implements, things like that. We have an auto mechanic shop where some of the guys work and work on people's cars. We have a couple of little construction crews where guys in the community, go out in the community and we do remodeling and different aspects of construction. So that's what helps us to fund everything. It's work therapy. It's a huge part of rehab. Most men in the world of addiction, and I mean, I would say probably 80-90% of men that are in the depths of addiction, they come from a labor background. They've done trade work and they've done it high, and there's drugs on every job site. So we teach them how to work sober, and that you don't have to get high to go to work. And so, or you may get a guy that comes into our program who has never done anything because he's been his whole life on dope since he was a teenager, and he has zero skills. Well, that guy comes into our program and he learns how to read a tape measure. learns the difference between a 9/16 wrench and an 18 millimeter wrench. Maybe learns how to change a starter on a car or change the oil or what have you. So life skills, teaching them different skills that they can have that will suit them when they leave here to be able to get a job. That's a big, big part of what we do here. Several hours out of every day, these men and women are working in different aspects of the ministry, and it's a big deal. It really is. So that's how Redeemed Ministries operates. I'm not saying that we have the perfect format, because we don't, but it is what is working for us. I believe it is the plan that God laid out for Pastor Chris Gortney, our founder, years ago. And has used men like me, women like Miss Shawn Hazelrig, who's been on the show with you before, to help fulfill and see that vision through. But that's what we do, brother. That's what works for us. So one of the big questions that I get all the time is, well, how much does it cost? Well, we're very blessed. Pastor Chris and I made a commitment from the day that we started the rehab program that we would never charge anybody a penny to come to our program. That the Lord would provide the funding and the financing for everything, and He has done that over and above. So, for us particularly, it doesn't cost people a penny to come here. I'm not disparaging any program that may charge people to go there. But it's very unfortunate that the world of secular rehab is very insurance driven. You mentioned it, these different places you see on TV, and thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. I remember getting a phone call one time from a parent, I believe, about getting a kid some help. And when I told them that our program was free, I mean, they just broke down. They said that they had been on the phone with a place in another state that was going to be $30,000 a month for their child to be there. Who's got that? Well, I mean, unless you're a millionaire, nobody does. And, the reality is that most people caught in the depths of addiction, they don't have insurance. They're not working a great job with insurance and benefits. They certainly aren't sitting on piles of cash. To be able to pay for that. So I think it's a big deal that God has allowed us to offer a free program and where people can work their way through and earn their way through the program. I think that's a big deal. And then as people near the end of our programs, we start working with them on life skills, how to fill out a job application, how to balance a checkbook, how to manage money. We typically are very blessed that we are able to arrange full-time employment for people almost all the time, even before they graduate. Within the last week or two of their actual program, we'll typically, we have different resources to find them a good full-time job here locally and go ahead and start putting them to work and allowing them to then the opportunity to move into our men's or women's transition home, where they pay a little bit of rent every week, but yet they're still held accountable. They have to pass a drug test. They can be searched. They have to be in church. Still have classes they have to attend. So we have tried our best to structure it in such a manner from where you get a man or a woman who is just dead in the middle of their addiction and doesn't know which way to go, and to take that person over that 9-month period and try to help them get to a place to begin to one step at a time re-enter society, and re-enter life and become a productive member of society. And certainly most importantly, we want to introduce them to a real saving relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about.
Do you have medical staff which helps people with detox and with that kind of aspect?
So we don't have any licensed medical practitioners that are on our staff, and we are very clear, even in our application form, that we are not a medical facility. Some people, I'm sure, will strongly disagree with my next statement, but 99% of the time, how we handle detox is the old-fashioned way. You got yourself into the mess, you need to feel the pain of getting out of it for a few days. and listen, there have been multiple instances over the years where I've refused to take people, or I've told them, listen, I don't think it's safe for you to come and detox in our facility. Maybe it was an older man that was coming off of alcohol. Alcohol can be a very violent detox, and can be very challenging to someone's health, especially maybe if they already have pre-existing conditions. Um, and so there have been times when I've said, listen, I'm not going to allow you to come here and detox. We need to find you a detox facility, then come to us once you have been detoxed. But typically, man, and I have a lot of guys ask me that. Well, what do y'all do about detox, brother? You're gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt. You're gonna be sick. You're gonna lay in the bed. We're gonna love you through it. We're gonna pray over you. We're gonna lay hands on you. We're gonna make sure you got plenty to eat and drink. But you're gonna hurt. And if you think about it, brother, that's kind of the way sin works, man. We pay the consequences for our sin. And when you see someone go through that detox and tough it out and fight through it, it means something. It means something to be on the other side of that. We are very blessed that we do have several people that volunteer around here in both the men's and women's program that have a medical background. We've got some nurses, some licensed and registered nurses that kind of, if I have someone I'm unsure about, I can call on and just get a little advice. I have a very, very good friend who's a surgeon in Florida. That same thing. If I have something I'm a little worried about, I can get some advice. And of course, anybody in our programs, if we thought that someone was in danger, we would either call 911 or take them directly to the hospital, depending on the situation. And listen, we've had people that come into detox and begin making suicidal threats, and we handle that appropriately. I mean, I'm not going to risk someone killing themselves on our watch because their mind is going crazy during detox. We're going to get them the appropriate help. But that's how we handle detox and the medical side of it.
It's interesting. I'm looking at a chart and says, and all this information is available online, that for alcohol, for example, for the first 24 hours to 2 days, withdrawal symptoms begin, such as anxiety, insomnia, shaking. 3 to 5 days, symptoms may peak within 72 hours. Seizures, fever, hallucinations may occur. After a week, physical symptoms of withdrawal taper off, and after the first week, they may experience cravings until treated through therapy. So, alcohol is a little bit faster than some others, but people who on benzos or hallucinogens,
Yes.
opioids, can be months.
Well, one of the most dangerous detoxes physically is a combination of alcohol and benzos. And for people that don't know, benzos would be like Xanax is a popular benzo, and it's a very popular combination of drugs, is alcohol and benzos, and that is a very, very dangerous detox. It really is. But so it's kind of crazy, Rabbi, and doing this for years now. For instance, if a man comes here and his drug of choice is methamphetamines, okay, here's what that's going to look like for him. And it's almost to a T. I mean, it's amazing, even the mental side of it. In other words, that guy is eventually he's going to go to sleep. It's probably going to take him several days before he actually is able to lay down, close his eyes, and go to sleep. Once he does that, then he's going to sleep like a brick for maybe 2 or 3 days. I mean, literally just sleep. When he wakes up, he is going to be hungry and he's going to eat, because when you're out on the streets and you're doing meth, you're not eating and you're not sleeping. So you have deprived your body of all the nutrients and everything that God designed you to need to sustain. And so, he's going to sleep, and then he's going to eat. He's going to begin to, kind of come to. Here's what's crazy. Within about a week to 10 days, I guarantee you that guy is going to come to me or another staff member one morning, and he's going to say, I've got to go. I've got to get out of here. Well, what's going on, man? Why do you have to go? Man, I had nightmares all last night. I had dreams terrible things are happening to my wife, things that I can't even talk about. They're so terrible. My children, terrible things are happening to them. What I have come to realize is it's the demonic preying on their minds, and what they're doing is the demonic has gained access to the mind through the drug use, open those doors, and so now they're not getting high. So the demonic is doing everything they can to convince them to leave this place of safety and of refuge and of healing, and so, but it's just insane to watch that process take place. For a guy coming off of heroin, man, he's going to have restless legs, he's going to shake, he's going to have the night sweats, cold chills, and it may take him a couple of weeks to get past that. Meth is a very mental detox. Heroin is a very physical detox. Alcohol and benzos, you just read that. After a couple of days, symptoms are going to set in. A lot of times, a lot of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, night sweats, fever, all, shakes, seizures, all of those things that you just talked about are, can be a part of that. So you kind of learn to know, okay, this guy's coming in, he's been on meth. Here's what's going to happen with him. And like I say, it is very scientific just to have watched that take place and doing this over the years, and to be able to just kind of know ahead of time what these men and women are going to face.
In your facility, do you kind of segregate based on stages? Are there groups of men who are at various stages of they're through detox, they're now in the program, they kind of move so that you aren't having somebody, their bunkmate is going through something they went through 4 months ago?
So yes and no. In other words, as far as living conditions, we really don't, just physically, our physical size doesn't allow us to do that. We did do that, and then we kind of, just by necessity, had to turn a room that we used to kind of use into detox and put more bunk beds in it for men to live in. Now, once we get our new facility built, I believe that we will be able to do a little more of that. But now, as far as work conditions and what these men and women are doing during the day, yes, we have some protocols on that. In other words, we know when a man or woman comes in here right off of the street, they're not going to be able to be up the next morning and be in class and attentive and taking notes and be able to go and work and be productive in what they're doing. So we allow for that. We wouldn't take a guy or a girl who just came in the program the first day, for instance, a man, and put them on one of our construction crews and send them over out to somebody's house in the community to do a remodel job. That would be somebody who's been here a little while, who obviously has detoxed, certainly, but who has earned our trust and earned the ability to be out like that, and to be away from the facility. So, when the men and women are first here, they're kept right under our direct supervision on a ministry property 24 hours a day.
Now, how does somebody get to the point of rehab? I know that through the court system, there's some alternative sentencing programs, working with law enforcement. I don't know if you get referrals from law enforcement or not, but a family, a person, and do individuals get to the point where they recognize that they need help and on their own take the initiative, or is it usually facilitated by some intervention?
Yeah. So I would say it's some of all of that, and just to touch on each one of those scenarios, we do work very closely with our local court system. I was on the phone at 6 o'clock yesterday morning with our local county sheriff here in Blount County, who I'm very blessed to have a very personal relationship with, and he was helping me with a young man and some issues, and kind of walking me through how to best help this young man get him sorted out. So we have people that are court ordered to us, that if they leave us, then it is our responsibility to immediately notify their probation officer, the judge, whoever, their community corrections officer, whoever, maybe DHR is involved, so all of those different avenues. And we have been able to gain very good standing with the court system because we have a reputation for doing that. We don't cut corners with people. If somebody is in our program and say fails a drug test, I'm not going to cover for them. I'm sending that directly to whoever has to go to. Listen, we've had men in our program that were quote, inmates of the state of Alabama, but were remanded to our custody to complete our program. We've had one guy here who was an inmate of the federal prison system and was remanded to our custody to complete our program. I actually wound up in that particular case, I had to kick him out, reported it directly back to his, federal and state probation officers. He was from a different state, reported it to them, and of course he wound up back in custody for violating the terms of his being with us. So we have that scenario of the court systems absolutely referring people and mandating people to us. Obviously, we get a lot of calls from family members, hey, I've got a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, a mom, a dad. What can I do to get them some help? And that's always the toughest call, Rabbi, because here's a harsh reality. Until an individual wants help, there's nothing you can do for them. And that sounds like, well, you're just giving up on people. No, I'm not. My life is about helping people, and I'm not giving up on anybody. But Jesus also is very clear, even in the Word. He says, if you take your message to a town and it's not received, he says, shake the dust off your feet and move on to the next town. And what that means is, in other words, I could spend all my time over here trying to convince a guy that doesn't want help that he needs help. Meanwhile, 10 people that really want help and need my attention and need my counsel, I've neglected because I'm wasting my time over here on a guy that his dad wants him to get help, but he doesn't want him to get help, and so, that's always a tough conversation to have, especially with a mama, that they just want their baby to get better. And I lovingly have to tell them to the best of my ability, until your son is ready to make this commitment, ma'am, I can't fix him. You can't fix him. Here's the advice I give parents. Pray for them to be miserable. Pray for God to do anything short of death to get their attention. I'll give you a real life example. I had a mother that was calling me from another state, and want my son to get help. Well, we tried to get him some help, had to kick him out one time. Well, I want him to come back, and we would have allowed him to come back, no problem. And she called me one day and she says, I just don't know if he's going to do it. She said he sold his truck and he's got a couple $1,000s in his pocket. I said, I'm going to start praying that he gets robbed tonight. I said, that's what I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray he gets robbed tonight. She says, I can't believe you would pray that about my son. I said, ma'am, he's got thousands of dollars in his front pocket and he's an addict. Do you want him to die of an overdose? Or you want him to get beat up and all his money taken? And so sometimes those conversations are well received, sometimes they're not. But Miss Shawn tells them to pray that people pray that they get rocks in their bed and can't sleep. So, it's just a person has to, we always use that phrase, rock bottom. But it's so true. A person has got to get to rock bottom. And isn't that even true for most of us? Where did we truly find the Lord at? In our darkest, most miserable place. When we truly got to that place and cried out to God and said, I can't do it. I need a Savior. And so now to move on to an individual, yes, we get individuals that contact us and say that those very things, man, I'm tired. I'm sick and tired. I've been doing this for 20 years and I just want something different. Can you help me? And that's where a person has to be, honestly. That's where they've got to get to truly have a life change.
We're talking with Brandon Gallups, as we do on the first Thursday of every month in the 10 o'clock hour. We're talking about overcoming addiction. It's a global epidemic: drugs, alcohol, marijuana. Whether or not you think it's a gateway drug, you don't think it's a gateway drug, a drug's a drug. Anything you put in your body which alters your chemistry is a drug. And God has given us natural remedies for things. And you say, well, you know, this is a plant, comes out of the ground. I've taken in my lifetime plenty of things that have come out of the ground that were unnatural experiences. And so, as Paul says, everything may be lawful, but not everything is beneficial. And we have to come to a clear understanding of this temple that God has given us to secure for housing for the Holy Spirit to take up residence in, to understand what God wants for wellness and health and mental health. And drugs, alcohol poison the body and confound the mind. And that leaves you open to an open door to all of the demonic activity that most addicts experience. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion of kind of educating ourselves on addiction, on recovery, on what some programs are like, insurance, and what the process is, and what the expectations are, and really kind of understand this so that we can have a keen ear when we have a friend, relative, someone we know that's going through this, that we have some understanding and can give some direction and point them in the right place. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps, and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitingnation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michelle and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and as we do on the first Thursday of every month in the 10 o'clock hour, we welcome in our good friend, Pastor Brandon Gallups, to talk about overcoming addiction. Brandon, welcome back.
Thank you, Rabbi. I appreciate it very much.
You know, Brandon, we have these centers like yours. I work closely with the folks at Jimmy Hale, the folks at Lovelady, spoken down there, led many to the Lord. There's so much need, so much supply, so much demand, because this is a universal issue that starts very early. I started at age 13 when I first, and that was 1965. So, you know, it's been around a long time. Just a long, long time. You know, we know in America that we have centers like yours. What do other countries do? Because they have the same kind of problems that we have.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, man. I haven't been to this particular facility now in several years, but for a while I was having the opportunity to go to Guatemala several times a year. And Guatemala is huge in the drug trade, in the drug industry. The most beautiful, lush farmland, and it's just indescribable natural beauty in that country. But the people just live in abject poverty and squalor, and because of that, alcoholism is a huge, huge problem. You can literally buy corn whiskey cheaper than you can clean drinking water in the villages there. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, the cocaine trade and then methamphetamines, everything else has made its way, in through those countries. So bottom line is, a particular mission that I was working with there for several years introduced me to a rehab facility there. They knew that I did that kind of work, and took me to it, and we got to visit there several times. And third world conditions, so you can imagine. But here's how they handled it, brother. They had a facility that could house, if I remember right, they housed somewhere between 50 and 60 men, and they had 3-tier bunk beds, okay, that would sleep, obviously, a person on each bunk. When their facility got overcrowded, they would take 2 of these beds and they would push them together like this, and they would sleep the men 3 across them like this. So they would have 9 people on 2 beds pushed together that would have normally held 6 people. Just unbelievable. But here's how they handle detox. Um, and the guy that ran this facility had an amazing story and background. He had been a big gang member and boss there in Guatemala. But here's how they handle detox. They have a dark room that they lock them in for 3 days. They provide them with a little bit of food and a little bit of water. And if they have people that are really, really experiencing very violent conditions of detox, they have a safe in the facility that only this one man that ran the facility had the combination to. And they kept a bottle of vodka in the safe. And then in Guatemala, you could buy Oxycontin over the counter. And they would keep just a very minimal amount. And so they would wean people off with either vodka or a little bit of Oxycontin and wean them off in very violent conditions. But they put them in a dark room and they leave them there for 3 days. A little food, a little water. After 3 days, they take them and they shower them off and begin to introduce them into the population of the facility. and the program was structured very similar actually to what we do. It was a 100% biblical based program, but the men worked there in the facility. If you've ever been to Central or South America, everybody makes their living by selling little trinkets and stuff in the street. And so they made little handmade items, and they did handmade paintings and things like that they would take into the local markets and the local street and sell them. And that's how they funded their facility, that and outside donations. So I've shared that story several times here with our men just to bring it into perspective. Do we handle things rough by U.S. standards? We probably do. But it can get way worse. It could be way worse. I've also had the pleasure of working with a women's facility in Peru, where, well, I don't know if I'll ever get to go back there now because of the craziness of our world, but up until last year, I've been going to Peru at least once and sometimes twice a year for several years. Got introduced to a women's facility, 18-month-long program. All of the women were in a uniform, and I mean by uniform, I mean like a tracksuit style, zip-up pants and shirt. Every one of them dressed alike, would walk into a room in a single file line, sit down in an ordered way, would not speak to any of us men unless they were given permission, so just very structured, very ordered. And I have actually had the privilege of ministering even continually to that particular facility through Zoom. Several times in the last year, they have done Zoom meetings with me, and I've been able to share some encouragement with those ladies, as well as I've brought some women from our women's program and allowed them to exchange encouragement back and forth. So yes, rehab exists in other countries. And in my experience of Guatemala and Peru, it kind of goes with the standard in those countries. In other words, Guatemala's third world in the most of that country, and the facility that I dealt with there showed it. Peruvians in the cities area live a little better standards, I would say, than the people in Guatemala did. Maybe a second world kind of standard, and their facilities and stuff showed it. But it's a global epidemic, brother, and there's a need for it everywhere. So that's been my experiences in other countries.
And it's so hard for me to, and it's only by the grace of God, because in the corporate world I took people out for drinks every night. I've been exposed to every drug there is, and have used every one, with the exception of heroin, in my lifetime during the hippie years. But never an addiction, never a desire, never none of that. I don't like alcohol. I've never had it in my home, so it just hasn't been a part of my life. So it's kind of hard for me to relate to people with problems. But my father was a 3 martini a day guy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I didn't know until after he passed away. But he was a regular drinker and a heavy drinker, and is what ultimately caused his death. But he was covering a depression, and so as we began to kind of look at his life, he was a depressed man, and this was his drug of choice to cover the triggers that triggered his depression, the success he didn't have that his friends had, and that was very hard for him. But how much of this is genetic? How much of this is a predisposal? I mean, are there genes involved in the world of addiction?
Yeah, I think we would be foolish to say no. Because obviously, even the Bible addresses generational sin, and then look at what the latest greatest studies in genetics and epigenetics are showing us, and obviously that can be a slippery slope, because I do not believe because a person's dad, granddad, great granddad were all alcoholics that person has to grow up and be an alcoholic and they don't have any other choice. I would never lead someone to believe that. Unfortunately, that belief system gets relayed in a lot of the world of secular rehab. That you were born this way, you're inherently broken, and you always will be. Here, take this pill and treat it. That's so. But yes, genetics does play into it. But the cool thing is those same genetic studies and epigenetic studies show us that the simple way I describe it is like a light switch. I can turn the switch off over here and turn the lights on and off. And that's what happens in our generations, is switches get turned on and off inside of us that, yes, predispose me to alcohol or drugs or pornography or, sexual sin, homosexuality, all of those things. They do, but those same studies show us that we have the ability to flip those switches back the other way and to reverse that, which is where generational blessings then come in,
right,
to our family. So yes, absolutely. I think that genetics, listen, and here I can prove it. Okay. A couple of dozen times now, probably over the years, I will have dealt with men or women that were removed from their biological mother at the moment of birth, never knew them, never laid eyes on them, never spent one single waking minute with them, but absolutely repeated to a T the life cycle of their biological parents. How does that happen? Well, that's generational sin. Right. And then when we dig into that and then begin to expose that, well, yes, this is what I've been able to find out about my biological parents. My mother died of an overdose at 25. My dad was died in prison, whatever the situation. So then we can deal with those things on a biblical and spiritual level. Okay, have you ever prayed against these things? Have you ever prayed for these generational iniquities to be removed and to be broken off? Have you ever renounced the occultic things your parents were involved in? And again, there may be people listening that think that I have lost my mind right now.
Not at all,
but
because they've heard it. My daughter's adopted. I adopted her at birth. Right? I received her in the delivery room. At 21, she met her birth mother, and her birth father died of a drug overdose. And so we know little parts and pieces of her background. She's never had any of those problems. She's been nurtured well. Naturally, she certainly has dabbled, but nurtured-wise knows right and wrong and excess and non-excess. And But she has friends that have literally said the first time they did something, the first time they took something, they were addicted to it. It was a one-time event, and all of a sudden they were hooked. And they say the drugs of the '60s and the drugs of today are light years apart. There was just none of that even in my hippie life of using recreational using that we had anybody who was an addict.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it, man. I mean, even, you said it earlier, about marijuana. Well, it grows on a tree. Well, not anymore. It doesn't. It's made in a lab and coated in chemicals, Right. And I'm not advocating that if it were truly grown on a tree and picked that God put it here for smoking and staying high. He didn't. He put it here for some reasons, and that's a whole nother topic. But, the methamphetamines of today, man, they're made from a concoction of chemicals that if you took any one of them individually, you would die. And you mix them all together and a certain chemical reaction take place, and it puts people out of their mind. What would we expect it to do? Look, heroin is a plant-based drug. It comes from the poppy plant, but now we're mixing in this synthetic with the fentanyl with it, and people are dying by the tens of thousands from overdoses from it every year. So I think there's some truth in that. Not that the drugs of the '60s were okay, because they certainly weren't. We're reaping the consequences of the free love, free drug, free sex movement of '60s and '70s now. Even in our churches, we're reaping those, the consequences of that. So, but the potency of and the chemical differences now, I don't think anybody could argue with that.
No, one of the favorite stories, of course, is Dr. Michael Brown from LSD to PhD. Is his story, and he went from being a heroin shooting, LSD dealing drug dealer to being one of the greatest Jewish apologists on the planet today. And God got a hold of him. So we know the power of prayer, the power of what you're doing is life-saving and life-changing. And that's why we bring this out and we talk about this and we try to bring it out in the open. And this is a biblical solution, a biblical approach to healing and to dealing with what the enemy wants to lie, kill, destroy, and take part. If you understand the demonic realm, these are spirits looking to inhabit a body. And you are the vessel when your body is inhabited by this. And that's the difference between possession and oppression. And you can move into deliverance, cast it out, and still be oppressed by it. That's the temptation, that's the recidivism, that's the return to it. But your success has been magnified by keeping people connected with the community of Redeemed. And that's been really your success model is 75% of those that stay connected with the church, stay connected with the community, do great and go on and make great lives for themselves. And recovery was what led them to the Lord, and what the enemy meant for evil, God would work for his good so that many would be saved. And so that's the vision you have, and we share that with you. And that's why we cover this every month here on the first Thursday of every month with Pastor Brandon Gallups on overcoming addiction. My friend, thank you as always for enlightening us and handling our lack of knowledge for something that's so critical in this time, in this season, that we do need to be educated. We need to be aware of how this works, because everybody's life is being touched by this somehow.
Absolutely.
Everybody's life. And so I thank you.
Leading us in this conversation today, brother. I'm so glad that we did this. I hope that some folks that watching have received some benefit from it.
Praise God. All right. Well, thank you so much. God bless you, your mama, Pamela, your daddy, Carl, and my good friends. God bless you.
Love you, brother.
Love you too. Thanks. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.